Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Jed and Gary's Wrestling Podcast. We're doing a review for Dynamite this week. That was a few days ago. We are doing it late. Me and Gary do have full-time jobs, and this is a fan-only podcast. So we usually will release these on Thursdays or Fridays. We apologise if it's a bit later than what people usually receive, but we are new to this. We're going to amend, change, and everything as the such. But we're just going to crack on and literally do a report to each match, our own review, our own little slide. But overall, Gary, what do you think of the show?
I thought it was a decent show. Definitely gives you a few hooks for next week and the weeks after. So that's all you can really ask for your wrestling shows, isn't it, Jed?
All I can do is echo that, Gary, to be honest. I think with the good thing is about AEW is they carry on the storytelling each week, and especially coming from a mini pay-per-view show like a hybrid, like I said last time we discussed it. They do very well to build these stuff up. So we started off with someone that we haven't seen in AEW. It was Cody Rhodes' challenge for the Open TNT title, and Eddie Kingston is the one that showed up. So we didn't get that right. I still think Pac should have shown up, even though it was impossible. However, phenomenal promo to start off with. I think the only thing I want to say in this bit about his promo, he said, and looked directly at Arn when he said this, is, "I swear my beautiful mother's eye, I will gorge your eye out." So phenomenal. I genuinely think he could talk people into buildings, but we'll get more to him afterwards. I'll just quickly go through the match before we start. So he offered up a no DQ match. Obviously, it's an open challenge, so Cody accepted this match. Throughout the match, there was a couple of decent spots with a few table and railing spots. You had the tack, which was the biggest spot of them all. Expose concrete, so that was a good one for Cody to do on Eddie. And then my favorite bit wasn't even a spot, it was just a normal dive outside the ring, but it was the fact that JR wanted to shout Tope Suicida, and that popped me, to be honest, Gary. That was brilliant. But it ended
Absolutely. It's a bit of a reference to NXT and Mauro Ranallo for anyone that could get it. A little bit of a side dig there as well, and I'm all for that. Little bit of competition never hurt anyone.
Exactly. It's just that it's that live, you're in the moment sort of thing. Just the slight little pops that don't get under people's gears as much. It's just there for fun, and we all like that, to be honest. And then it finished off with Cody doing the figure four on Kingston right near the tacks, and to be honest, he put his hand in it at the very end, and that looked very, very painful. But overall, I thought it was an extremely strong start to the show. Gary, what do you think?
I think it was an extremely strong debut. I'll be honest with you. I think that Eddie Kingston's a character that I've never really got into, whether it was in TNA, Impact, or NWA. I've never really seen him as a star, but what he's done on Dynamite this week has definitely opened a door where I thought, this guy's actually got more charisma than I gave him credit for, and I can't turn around and compliment him enough for it.
Yeah, it was phenomenal, that opening promo. He was one of the few people a while back that, I think you said his name to me a good few months ago, and I didn't have a clue. And you kept saying to me, you just need to watch a few of his stuff, even though you've not watched much of it. And it just goes to show. And I'm just glad, to be honest, that with all these independent wrestlers, all these people from other promotions possibly coming in, and possibly, hopefully, fingers crossed, being signed, it just gives you that platform just to see these new type of people. It's just like Ricky Starks the other week. I thought he was phenomenal to start off with. He didn't speak much, but it was just that character he showed. But I think Eddie, exactly as you said there, Gary, if he is signed, he's going to be phenomenal.
Yeah. Like I said, I'd never actually saw it from him previously, but this time that promo has opened a door for him, and he just needs to walk through it.
Yeah. Imagine this. Imagine him, Moxley, and Taz having a three-way promo against each other.
That's just charisma personified, isn't it?
It is. And you let the Caesar walk in, obviously, Cody, the Caesar. You let him walk in there just for a four-way, but you just need them three people to talk. And if we're going to carry on with this throughout the lockdown period. But once you get crowds back, and if you can get crowds back, he single-handedly will be able to get a good portion of them people into buildings.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Especially if he's going with the whole hardcore sort of no disqualification match types that, in fairness, has got Mox over. It's got Darby Allin over. Hell, it's even at times it's got Lucha Underground and their history and that promotion. That was 90% of the stuff that he'd do over there.
Yeah.
And it was just, that was my favourite kind of Eddie Kingston, to be honest with you.
It is, and I generally think if there's a next Lightouts match in AEW, he needs to be one of the people in it, depending on the scenario. But that's going into later booking and probably a different conversation. The match itself, I generally thought made a good precedence for the rest of the evening. And if this is the first thing that you saw, you know you're in a good night, because later down the road there was a Falls Count Anywhere match, something that could have been quite similar to this, probably not as gruesome, and we'll discuss it later on, but it was a very, very strong start to a show, and this made tonight, well, that night, I should say, because we watched it a few days ago now, extremely good. What do you think of Cody's performance in it all?
Well, Cody's always at a level that you can't really complain about. He's always good to great.
Yeah.
And his presentation at the minute with the teases is just amazing. Like last night or Wednesday, he was actually 100% like much more babyface than he was the week before. Let's put it that way.
Definitely.
Yeah, he's definitely starting to lean towards the Arn Anderson career heel sort of tendencies, but we didn't really see too much of that, especially when he just automatically accepted the challenge of the no disqualification match.
Yeah,
Which,
I again, it's just echoing you, Gary. I totally agree with you. With Cody himself as well, he's not got that long-term story that we can currently see that's blue sky, that's straight away in front of our eyes. He's got them small stories he's telling in each match each week. And as you said, flipping from being a heel-type character one week to pure babyface this week. Phenomenal. And I thought the figure four was a cute finish as well, doing an actual submission on a hardcore type or wrestler than actually pinning him was just up there, because it was more of a fight feel instead of a wrestling match, and getting someone to tap out is just the pinnacle, just that little cherry on top of the cake just to finish that match off, I thought.
I definitely love the idea of Cody using the Ric Flair move, though, just because of the history between Ric Flair and his father. I love that sort of level of just tease of something that may be building towards like a Four Horsemen type group.
Planting the seeds for us, Gary. It's what it's doing. Again,
Exactly.
for the more viewers we'll have more discussions about anything me and Gary think could possibly happen in the future. These are just our beginning podcasts. We will be eventually doing lists of our favourite and least favourite things of the show as well, and other wrestling companies possibly, and also discussing around different topics as who could possibly be a Four Horsemen AEW promo. So from one hardcore to a next, we had a Jon Moxley promo. And he's basically on about last week's title defense win against Brian Cage, and how Taz is the best manager in the goddamn world because he let Brian lose by throwing the towel in. And Jon Moxley still wants to rip off Brian's arm through the socket. Nothing new here, but I think the promo was very, very well placed into the next match. And what we discussed earlier in the week with a certain somebody, Gary, MGF versus Griff Grayson, and your favourite current funny character at the moment, Jungle Man. I'll let you carry on with this one.
You can't argue with being the Elite's presentation of Jungle Man, aka Griff Garrison. He's just absolutely brilliant. Every time that he's introduced in that show, it's the best bit of comedy in the entire 30 minutes. And I really do think that we should get some sort of clips from being the Elite in the middle of a Dynamite show, just to show these characters that every so often will show up on TV that don't actually get the TV time.
Definitely. I think it's a bit difficult because, as we both understand it, they've only got 2 hours to spare. A lot of that's in breaks. But what they could do is, you know how you've got sometimes the Road 2 shows pre-hand, like just having little replays in there. I know, again, you're saying it's not on the TV show, but I do agree, they do need something just to relay back. It's like when they used to not inform us about Dark, and they've recently changed that by putting that little highlight reel at the bottom, in the writing saying who's beat who. And every now and again when they actually reference it on commentary, but definitely with Griff Grayson. So in the match, before the match, actually, MGF does a promo just about Griff Grayson himself and how MGF is unbeaten, which Griff later says, well, he did lose a tag team match the other week. Obviously, MGF hits him with the mic because he's a bit peeved by that comment, and they proceed with the match. During the match, MGF forces Griff to say if he's undefeated, and then Griff grabs MGF, rolls him up for a 2.5 count. I'll be honest, it did grin me. I actually thought that Griff nearly got the win. And then later on, just a few hits here and there, box standard, quick match. MGF hits the Heat Seeker for the win and not his submission move. Overall, a decent match. Do you think the work was granted for what it was?
For what it was a machine to get Griff and MJF over, and it's done that for both of them. I actually think that MJF's now at that point where he's getting other characters over on the show, which shows the amount of work that he's put in and AEW's storytellers have put in and the bookers over the last year with that character.
Yeah.
And I think it actually goes to prove that when he says, I'm better than you and you know it, he actually might well be.
Yeah, MGF is phenomenal. Again, this is one of the things I love about the show. It was a very promo-heavy show compared to the other ones we've had previous weeks. But the fact that they put the promo and the match collectively together, it shows you don't need a 50-minute talking session. You don't need talking shows within a wrestling show. You just need someone to have that slight bit of mic time to put themselves and, as you said, other people over. And I thought he actually did Griff very good. Even though he lost the match, you can say he's getting buried, where other people will say that, but I don't think so at all. I think he's got the good enough work. You've got QT and Dusty, everybody that can give him, Dustin, that give him a lot of the work to make him a better wrestler. And I think Griff will be up there eventually if he just keeps at it. And MGF, this is where the story developed. The only thing I got out of this in a small point of view was, no matter what, because Griff Grayson, Jungle Man, I should say, I bet any money MGF still thought this was a win over Jungle Boy because he's the one that made Griff portray as Jungle Man. I bet he still thinks he's beaten Jungle Boy, even though he beat a completely different person.
Oh, absolutely. He's going to be that conceited, isn't he?
Oh, he reminds you of someone that we know, Gary. But on next off, we've got somebody else that is very, very good on the mic and very recently got very good in promos. We have one of the best women in the whole of AEW at the moment. Reba, obviously not. It's Britt Baker. Gary, I'll let you continue with this one. And really, is she Michael Jordan?
She is. She's absolutely the greatest thing to happen to that women's division. And every week that she turns up, she is an absolute highlight. And this is coming from someone that absolutely at the first start of Dynamite was all for Shida. But as soon as Shida steps in that ring with Britt Baker, I'm 100% switching sides.
The transition of her going face to heel was so natural. And the pinnacle moment was that bloody nose, and as you said, it was the moment she hit Sheeta. That match together was phenomenal, but her promo skills and her actual portraying of her character is phenomenal, especially with the role model thing that's come up. And Tony's Schiavone, he's one of the best people in this, but I think with Reba and Britt Baker, there's something in behind there I want to discuss later on in relation to the women's division that's there. But I generally thought it was good just to portray. I don't think it was her best moment at the moment. What wasn't her best portrayal, but it was good to see her. Even having 1 week without Britt Baker was we missed her last week, to be honest. I think so. You only really saw Chris Jericho reading her notes, but she's very good, and I think a lot of people are going to love her when she gets the title. Keyword eventually.
Yeah, she's definitely on a course for that push when she comes back all out. I can't see them going with any other decision, because you've got to go with the right one, and the right one at the minute is Britt Baker.
It is quite similar with the women's division in total, because I didn't expect, I'll be honest, I'll openly admit this is our second podcast, you won't know my thoughts, but these are the viewers. Gary, you know exactly what I think, but I didn't think Sheeta should have won. She should have, because of all her effort and whatnot, but I just don't think that was the right time to give it her, because I still think Nyla could have continued being badass, but never mind. She's still been a good champion so far, and she got an absolute banging match out of Penelope Ford. But we'll get back onto the women later on. Next was another promo, and something that actually does go into dark, which you don't see quite often, and it's Brian Cage and Taz. So they show up, Mr. Orange Towel himself. Taz just basically explains down the mic that he nearly got fired. Brian Cage nearly sacked him off. They had a few arguments here and there about the towel, but then again, all decisions prevailed because Brian Cage wanted Taz, and he needs Taz and needs someone else entirely. But before that happens, Darby Allin shows up. I believe with a skateboard, recalling the top of my head. And then Ricky Starks, out of everybody, attacks him. So if anyone has watched Dark, they've probably seen Ricky Starks doing a few hand signals and gestures to Taz whilst he's been on commentary. And this is where that merits up. You wouldn't expect Brian Cage and Ricky to ever meet outside of AEW and be busy mates. But in the ring, with a person like Taz, it actually gels together, I think. But after that, Darby gets beaten up by Ricky. And who comes to save Darby Allin? Nobody. No, for once, it's actually Mox. He comes out with a baseball bat in wire, and it leads to a tag team match for next week. Very mid-carder stuff, I believe, for Moxley, that will eventually go to MGF. But from what it was, I thought it was very good. What did you think, Gary?
I thought it was very good for what it was. As you said, I can't disagree with you at all. I'm definitely looking forward to the ascension of Ricky Starks. I'll be honest with you. I've seen a few things from him on the NWA Power Show that I really did like. I could see a bit of The Rock in him. And not just because he looks like him, but because he's got the charisma. And I actually think that's why they're stopping him from going on the mic too much at the minute.
Is he a good mic talker? Because I've not really heard much from him.
He's a brilliant mic talker from what I've seen. I don't know whether that's because NWA Power can edit their shows down before they put onto YouTube or what have you. But from what I've seen of him, he's fantastic on the mic. Whether I always wanted to see him as a heel rather than a face, which he was portraying on NWA. So this is my big chance, and I am looking forward to seeing what him, Brian Cage, and Taz can do together.
Yeah, I like like you said, Gary, I like how people are portrayed, and the very first time you saw him, just that cockiness of him walking out in the ring and his music and very New Orleans-esque type of vibe. Phenomenal, and I think they'll do very, very well. Look forward to the tag team. Like I said, a bit mid-carder for what the actual title stands for Mox, but there's reasons for it because there's building blocks. They lead to a bigger program in the end. I generally think I'm glad they haven't finished the Brian Cage Moxley feud off entirely. They're just adding new elements into it, ready for Brian Cage versus Darby in the future. But I thought it was very well. Next was a video package for the female tag team tournament. tournament. So this is something that we brought up in the preview. Not the video package, obviously. We didn't know that was going to happen. We didn't know the tournament was going to happen either. But is it 16 teams, Gary, that's happening?
I believe so.
Yeah, so we're going to have 16 teams, probably, hopefully, leading up to an all-out. And it's going to be all women. They're basically doing their own evolution type of portrayal. But as we said earlier on in the week, it was a bit unusual that somehow Brandy Rhodes started showing up in a tag team. And then she brought in the bunny, which is Ali, to herself. Do you believe new belts will be introduced though at the end of all this, Gary? Because for me, they have to be leading somewhere with something as big as a tag team tournament. I'm glad they're introducing something else, getting more women in the limelight. But I've got another concern later on that I want to brief in relation to the women's division, but belts.
I can see that happening. I'll be honest with you, that was the first thought that I had when I was watching the promo itself, was surely this has to be leading to some sort of tag team titles for the women. However, I think maybe it might be like a Dusty tournament that they have in NXT where it just leads to a trophy or something.
Oh, okay.
But there definitely has to be a trophy or a title belt or something at the end of it that makes all of this tournament worthwhile. Otherwise, it's just going to seem like a complete waste of time at the end of it, even if it does get people over.
Yeah, like a more meaningful type of ring, because you know MJF's got the Diamond. Well, is it Diamond Dallas ring? It's not the Diamond Dallas ring, is it?
No, it's just the one that he used to turn around and embarrass Diamond Dallas Page.
Yeah, that's why I got it in my head for some reason. But no, he's just got the ring for it. They could introduce a trophy or something. I generally think belts would probably be a good idea. But again, I'm going to raise my concerns later on in the when we discuss the women's match. But the only thing I want to bring up from this video package is one person saying the complete opposite to the other women when they portrayed it. So Anu J, that got beat off the zombie living dead girl the other week. She said she was the only one to say who will become allies. So I just want to bring that to everyone's attention, just in case you did miss it. Possibly a big Dark Order reference to that, because she may be introduced to another faction. But if she needs to be in a tag team, they need to give her another woman in the Dark Order, or just give her the zombie. Yeah. So next we had another zombie, a very old person, Chris Jericho. No, I'm only joking there, Jericho. Don't tweet at us, even though you don't know who we are yet. But he complains about his jacket is full of orange juice. He gets the inner circle to state it. Just a bog standard Chris Jericho promo, ready to fuel the feud later on in the match of the evening. Not much we can really pin from that. However, do we have a match of the night contender next, Gary, with the Butcher and Blade versus Bucks in a Falls Count Anywhere match?
I said in the preview that I thought this would be 100 miles per hour. I definitely think that it did live up somewhat to that. Maybe not in the traditional sort of flying everywhere sort of way that I may have expected from the Young Bucks, but it was definitely blink and you miss something going on. And I love them sort of matches. And definitely, I think because I went from invested in it to laughing to just zoning out and enjoying the match itself, I absolutely think it's the match of the night.
Yeah, he was going through all emotions for it. The good thing is, I never realised as well, with Butcher and Blade, they could have that comedic effect. They've done really well with the four teams around that little mini feud with the tag team division. And they're really up there at the moment. When I very first saw Butcher and the Blade, I thought, wow, he's a scary bloke, and the guy's wearing a gimp mask. But overall, they weren't portrayed very well at the very beginning. I don't know if that's because of the bunny with them, or it's because of the booking at the time. But like other things, they just need to flourish. And they found out that if they dress them in white, that they're going to do absolutely amazing, apparently. So that's what they're carrying on doing. But I think they've booked them very, very well, and they're actually up there. And eventually, I want to see them contend properly for the titles, but that's a completely different conversation. What was my favourite bit of the whole match, though, Gary? I did tell you earlier.
It was the fact that no matter what, the Butcher was always wearing an apron.
Phenomenal. Absolutely love it. Even that small horror effect on the side of it, just that apron. I don't know why. It made me giggle so much. And out of them four, I generally think the Butcher's my favourite guy just at the moment. He's absolutely hilarious. I didn't even know as well until the other week that he was in a rock band, and his rock band is actually his priority over wrestling. So that's a new fact for me. So I'll quickly go through the match and then we'll discuss a few bits of it. Started off with the Bucks searched for a Butcher and Blade with a referee because it's full kind anywhere. You can do it wherever you need. Found him in the kitchen. Convenient. They were cutting some random meat slabs on a random table. But before they started fighting, they let the Butcher and Blade wash their hands, obviously, this day and age. I found that brilliant. They slam each other into the tables in the kitchen, across the fridges, whatnot. Matt slaps some meat across both Butcher and the Blade, which made a funny sound. And then later on, they get out of the kitchen. They fight around the arena between the kitchen and the ring. Matt jumps on to the Butcher. They've laid on a table with a tray. Nearly slips off. The table doesn't break. And then the super kick the Blade up an escalator. And just before that, as it's fresh in my head, I think Matt run the full length of a trailer just to jump on both of them, if I'm remembering that rightly. And then Nick got slammed into a big version of himself inside of the trailer as well. But I know that you really enjoyed that escalator spot, and it popped me a little.
I was roaring with laughter with it because I was just watching this guy going up this escalator, and I just thought, well, that is definitely my favourite spot in AEW in weeks. Definitely.
It was just the way he crumbled into it. You just knew it was going to happen, but because he was stood there and he was waiting around the escalator, and he absolutely just crumbles into it. But I do like them too, and obviously we love the Bucks because they are the best tag team in the world. Please, no one fighters. Okay, after the break, they ended up in the ring. Quite a few table spots. There were one table spot I'll bring to everyone's attention. You probably saw it. The Blade jumped over the top rope, hoping to land into a table that one of the Bucks dodged, but he completely missed it. Absolutely just landed in a heap on the floor. He wasn't having a good night, crumpling up an escalator and then landing on the floor there. Then there's a double submission on the Butcher. Eventually it got up to the entrance. It's two tables set up. Butcher on the left, Blade on the right, Matt on the left, and Nick on the right. As you're seeing it, they both jump from the entrance. What would you say, like arches, the actual entrance?
Top of the.
Yeah, and then they jump onto the 1, 2, 3, get the win. And hands down, one of the most high-paced fun matches in a while. And I'm very glad they didn't do it on the pay-per-view shows they had the other week, like the type hybrid shows. It was a mixture between, you know, when Kenny and Matt was against Chris and Sammy, and also a bit like the Stadium Stampede rolled into one, but with just different characters. It's what it felt like.
Yeah, I think it's one of the strong points of AEW that they'll book sort of matches like this. I just think that sometimes when we're watching wrestling, we want something that just takes us out of it, and this match definitely did that.
It did.
Absolute TV match gold.
It was, and I'm very glad they did it in that way, that kind of style, because back to the conversation of fans, it was much noisier this week, which I'm very, very grateful for. The noisier it gets, the more environment side you get, and you forget that people aren't there, it's not full up. But because of the style they did it, I just didn't think at any point the fans weren't around. For some reason, I was just tunnel vision in just to the match and the people and the mini story they were telling, even though it was just basically drug fueled spots that we're all used to when it comes to the Bucks. I'm just glad that they're giving Butcher and Blade better booking and matches to do, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Butcher and Blade are definitely a tag team to look out for the future. I can see them sort of going up them ranks, just like sort of Dustin and QT Marshall did a couple of weeks back, just out of nowhere, and you're like looking at them rankings going, yeah, sweet. I'm looking forward to that.
Again, agreed. So going from one big bloke of the Butcher to an even bigger bloke times two. Lance Archer and Snake the Jake were out and about. They were interviewed. And I'll be honest, there was one little tripe I had with this, but overall phenomenal. They were asked, how is Lance Archer doing? What's he going to be doing for the future? Is he ready for his next match? So instead of answering the question, he basically went into the jobbers' locker room, threw one guy out, put another guy through the roof, and then ended up having the third person through the bin. Me personally, Gary, as I discussed with yourself, I generally thought that's all he could have done and just said, everybody dies, because everybody will die with Lance Archer, and then walk out and let Snake do a bit of the talking. Because I'll be honest, I didn't really get much of what Lance was saying. It was a bit quiet when it portrayed on mine, and that's what like changed my view on this this little vignette straight away. But overall, very positive stuff, and it still makes Lance Archer look like the hardest man in AEW currently.
Yeah, he looks exactly like the Murder Hawk character. I think I was discussing with you previously about how I was struggling to see him as anything but TNA's Lance Rock. And how I couldn't see him as a serious character because I thought of him as this character who was essentially a jobber in TNA with a little toy guitar that's like a kid's toy guitar, and it was just an awful gimmick for him. But again, I guess that's because he was coming through the ranks at the time and paying his dues, as they say.
Yeah.
But I definitely see him as a Murder Hawk now, thanks to the presentation of it. Months with Jake and Moxley, and definitely when he put that guy through the roof, it was just exactly what he needed at that time.
It's going to be an A2 printout. I'm going to put it in a poster behind my workspace from tomorrow. Me personally, Gary, I think when we do our own separate discussions about individual wrestlers, what we like, what we dislike, or just general chit chat, I think he should be one of our very first topics because we both got a lot to say about Lance and even I'll call him Snake, even Jake at the same time, to be honest. So very well done, I thought, portrayed okay. Just that last ending bit, but it doesn't matter. He's an absolute monster. So the next one was the women's match. We have Eva Lise versus Diamante. Very, very quick. I don't think the work was portrayed for an actual Dynamite match. I thought it was very shades of AEW dark, to be honest, this match.
It definitely did have a dark theme to it. I will be honest, I actually think that I'm a little bit disappointed by it because in the preview I was bigging them both up and saying they could put on a fantastic match, and I still think that they can. I just don't think they were given the time to do it.
Precisely, and that's where my argument comes into it. It's that time aspect. So there were two bits I didn't like about this match. I'll just basically, they just had a quick grapple, a few moves here and there, and Diamante rolls up Eva Lise just to finish it off. And then she's actually going to go against Shida next week. I don't think it's a championship match. I think they're just having a normal bog standard wrestling match. But this is where I believe the women's division is not given enough time. There were two things. So the length of the match is number one. The new characters, I wanted to see how far they could go. Don't give them 20 minutes. I just think give them just that tad bit longer. Just give them a few more movesets. Give them a few, I wouldn't say near spots, just a few damaging spots. But it was the fact that they added Swole into it, that little box where she had a mini promo. I just felt like it was very cramped. It got me distracted to the two people in the ring, to Swole giving her a promo. Yeah, I love the Britt Baker Swole little feud that's going on, and I can't wait for them two to feud. But why not have Swole separately and then have the match? Because it would have portrayed much better. Because with Swole, you could have had a better presentation because she's currently suspended. So if she had a better out view, a better environment behind, it was just her sat somewhere doing a little vignette that didn't really relate in relation to the matches. That was the only bit I didn't like. I think they could have wrapped this up much, much cleaner. The only positive I can give it is it's given us two new characters. We need more women's division characters with all the injuries that have gone on and the current state of affairs. So a lot of people are trapped in Japan at the moment because they can't come over to America. I do like how they've introduced 2. I just don't like the time frame they got given.
No, this is one problem that we can both admit AEW has at the minute, is the times that they give to the women's matches. And with them booking this women's tag tournament as well, I'm really hoping that tournament's given time to develop and to make fans invested in these characters.
Yeah. Because with the tournament, if you've got 16 teams, you've got 8 matches there. So that's 8 different times, 8 different time slots. I'll be happy to have 2 of them beginning matches to be extremely quick. Happy, give them the ticket to do so. But they need to tell 8 different stories at the very beginning, and then you've got the tournament tier as it goes along. So we need to learn pretty quick about the different women. Just as a quick overview for next week, I generally think Diamante is going to get screwed over by Eva Lise in her match against Shida. I don't think them two. I still have that vision because they both came out in them little bandana masks. They're going to be working together for some reason, and the commentators are gaily getting over that they've worked together previously as well, and I think that's very important to remember for the future. But overall, I'm glad they've introduced 2 new characters. Not the best way to doing it, not the best match of the night. I think it was the worst one, to be honest.
Yeah, unfortunately for both of the women that were involved, they were actually on a night that every other match seemed to deliver on a level, as I said earlier, good to great.
Yes. Good, great,
Obviously.
and just absolutely young bucks. So going over from the women's, we go back to the Day Drinker Hagman Page. His little strap line today was he was trying out some new white tape. So anyone that doesn't know, white in the representation to do with cowboys is good. A lot of people think it's actually black that thinks that they're good characters, but white means good. If I've got that completely wrong, please amend me in the comments. I might have just completely flipped that on its head, but it's just very interesting.
That is absolutely true, Jed. The white cap means that it's the good, pure character. The black cap's the one that's a little bit more shady. I do think there's certain connotations to that these days have been picked up on quite rightly. But that was just how Hollywood was in the 40s and 50s when Westerns were the thing.
And if you don't believe me, just go and customize your character in Red Dead Redemption with absolutely any colors whatsoever. But Hangman, basically, Hangman won. It was an easy win for him. He actually didn't use his buckshot. It was just a power bomb to finish, which is good because you need to give certain people the secondary finishes. They're not so powerful ones, but the secondary ones just to make them pops eventually, especially when you're on your couch at home or settee, as we say in England. It was a box standard match, nothing special. Got 5 to do a few moves in here and there. It was very like Kenny when he did that the other weeks and everyone will complain about it. But more importantly, it was after the match. Brody Lee shows up. He says some spiel about the Dark Order, how he wants Hangman to join. He was very disappointed that Hangman didn't have any friends out there, and he wants Hangman to join a set of quotation friends. But Hangman shoots him down straight away with your favourite line, Gary. He doesn't want to join a cult. Brody Lee's very, very peeved, makes the Dark Order attack him. The new tag team of the division shows up, FTR. They throw a cooler right into 2 Dark Orders. I can't remember the 2 people. I think it was Silver and the other. It smashes, which was a good visual. Beer everywhere, ice everywhere. Similar to an event I had with a golf cart and a packet of grapes I had once. Long story, I'll explain a different time. And Kenny runs out later. FTR off Hangman the beer. He accepts it, and Kenny just looks very, very shocked. The angle itself, go on, Gary, go for it.
The angle itself was in the preview that we did the other day about the Dark Order trying to eke over Adam Page, and I'll be honest, I don't think I can see that ever happening, despite what was discussed in the preview with you, Jed.
Yeah, Did you think it could have happened, say, if Hangman didn't get over as much then because of his Jan onwards run? Well, I would actually say probably December time onwards, that's when he started getting over properly. But would you say if that didn't happen, none of this would happen anyway, because none of the storyline would make that much sense interlining? But do you think he would have joined?
It could have, definitely. If maybe, actually, if he would have won the world title in that world title match that he had with Jericho, and then lost it, I could have seen him join now because of that.
And I'm glad that didn't happen.
I am so glad that didn't happen. I'll be honest with you. I think a little bit of the bubbly was too good of an opportunity to miss.
Still my favourite thing. I really need to get a T-shirt with that on. He's different again. He's another person we're gonna have a conversation about because insane, and I think Hangman should be up there as well with Lance's. But overall, bog standard. We've seen this ongoing, and it's leading into the FTR feud. So it's the Dark Order is matches next week. So we did say this, that the Dark Order was the top of the rankings. They're making that known, but they didn't mention that as much. Only the commentators basically put a line in here and there. They didn't put the rankings up. They used to, like a good couple of months ago, have actually the rankings come up for a couple of seconds. I generally think they need that back because I'm a bit of a nerd. I just go out and search left, right, and centre. I just came across on the website that the Dark Order are over. If I didn't know that, we wouldn't have brought it up in the preview. We wouldn't have had this conversation. But in the end, Kenny and Hangman will win. I strongly believe. If they don't, wow. But I think it's going to lead to the FTR feud into All Out strongly, or it will lead into something where FTR will get the titles later in the year. It's not All Out. What's the last pay-per-view of the year?
Is it Full Gear?
Full Gear, that's the one. I think they might get it there, not All Out, but we'll wait and see. I generally think it was all right.
Yeah. Well, Full Gear would be the theme for the trucker guys to turn around and take their shot at the title, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I never thought of that. And then thinking about the truck again, very disappointed they didn't use that in the Falls Count Anywhere match. But damn. Last match of the night was Inner Circle versus Jurassic Express. Standard match. I thought it was a bit sloppy here and there, but it wasn't really the match. I don't think you ever need to. The match doesn't need to be remembered because it's the end of the match that needs to be remembered. I'm going to say my due, Gary, because it's not controversial. It's just how I think. And really, so what happened was they had the ongoing back. I generally thought the Chris Jericho and Jurassic Express, that's who they were against, but Luchasaurus was phenomenal. I generally thought this was Jake Hager's best match in AEW so far, minus the cinematic Stadium Stampede. But I generally thought his work was the best of the four. But it was Serpentico. So Serpentico was in the crowd. It zoomed into him a couple of times. And then if you saw it neatly, it changed. His tattoos disappeared and whatnot. So Serpentico run in. He hit Jungle Boy with the bar. Inner Circle get the win because they They pinned him 1, 2, 3. Then, as they're all celebrating, they're all a bit confused why Serpentico's in the ring beating these up with the Inner Circle. It zooms into his eyes, and you can clearly tell. And then pulls it off. It's Sammy Guevara. They do the typical Sammy and Jericho hug, which is my favorite thing in AEW. And then eventually Orange and the Best Friends run out to assist Jurassic Express, leading up to a 5v5 next week, which we'll discuss afterwards what I believe it is. But overall, it's about Sammy. So the question I've got for you, Gary, is did he or did he not deserve the welcome back as what it's portrayed? So for me, I'm not bothered. It's the business's point of view. It's AEW, it's Tony. It's his decision of when Sammy should be brought back. It's not about timelines. It's about if he's learned it. We're going to learn that in the future if he's learned his lesson for what it was. Anybody that doesn't know, he made some horrific remarks to a WWE wrestler, I believe it was Sasha Banks, on a video or podcast like back in 2016. It was horrific. He can't be forgiven for it. He did apologize, which we agree. It's 4 years later. It's the business's AEW's decision to bring him back. I am not bothered how they've done it. I just want to know that he's learned his lesson, and I can only learn that in the weeks to come. Because if he does it again, I'm not going to like him one bit. I love Sammy Guevara as the character he is now, not he was before. That's me. That's the last thing I'm going to say about that whole situation with Sasha.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I think everyone has to give him a chance to prove that he's learnt from the mistakes that he's made. And them comments were abhorrent, and nobody can stick up for him and them comments that he made. And nobody should be making comments of that ilk towards anyone, no matter whether they're people that they know just out on the street or friends or any sort of human being would not make that comment about anyone. I just want to make that clear from my personal point of view. However, I will separate the character that's on TV with the person. And the character that's on TV is highly entertaining, has some of the best chemistry with one of my favourite wrestlers of all time in Chris Jericho. And eventually I hope to see them two feud. And because of that, I think eventually had to be brought back anyway. So might as well just get on with it and see whether he can prove that he was remorseful like he said he was.
Yeah.
And hopefully he can turn over a leaf that shows how different he can be and how much he's grown since them comments 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And I hope that the talent that he's got doesn't actually go to waste, because that would be a shame as well.
Definitely, he's so naturally talented. It's phenomenal. And to be honest, when he came out of Serpentico, I did like how they introduced it, but I want to know what's going to happen with Serpentico in the future now. So does Serpentico know he's been ripped off by Sammy? Was there a secret agreement in the background? I'm very interested randomly about that bit. And I think they could actually bring Sammy and Serpentico. They could have like a mini like just agreement on the side. Like they should do their own little vignettes for it. Either if he's even on Dark, because I generally think they could introduce more promos on Dark because they are stretching it out a bit more. But no. With Sammy himself, it's the character that we're bothered about with AEW. Outside of AEW, we know what's happened. It was horrific. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he's learned. I generally think Tony did the best thing he could have done. Suspended him without pay for that certain period of time. Yes, you could speak about length and it should have been a week or it should have been a year. He should be ripped off TV. No. It's Tony's business. Let him decide. If he thinks it's right, you just need to go in and trust it. If it's not right and something bad happens, you look at Tony and go, what are you doing? You don't look at Sammy because that's Sammy. That's who he is. And he'll be wiped off the face of the earth if he does it again. That's as simple as that.
Yeah.
But it's down to Tony in the end. And I have full respect that they've done the full right thing. I just disagree with a lot of people saying he shouldn't have been given a celebration introduction. He's a heel and he still is a heel. His character needed that back. And I'll be honest, I think Inner Circle missed him for when he was away.
I actually think the entire TV show missed him. I think in terms of his talent and what he brings to AEW as a talent, he was actually one of the quickest rising stars of the company when them comments were revealed to us.
Yeah.
And I think that he does deserve a second chance, don't get me wrong. I know that what he said was terrible, and I can't stress that enough. But again, it's Tony Khan's company. It's his decision. He suspended him for roughly a month.
Yeah, I think it's around 30 days, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's longer than what WWE have done with a lot of the people that were accused of things that they've done.
Yeah, precisely. And other companies have done lots of sweeping under the rugs, not even just WWE, a lot of others. But no, again, it's the company's decision. And we just need to put faith in that company if we enjoy the wrestling on that night. It's the same with NXT. If something's happened on there, if you enjoy it, you just need to have trust with the people running that show at that time. So Overall, phenomenal show. You just give me an idea for a new list, though, Gary. Much appreciated. Our five top favorite rising stars in the company at the moment. I've just named three, and we've mentioned two in this podcast, so that's very good. So there's going to be a 5v5 match next week. I generally thought when I saw this graphic come up with the 5v5, it was going to be a blood and guts match. I really, really, really thought that was going to happen. So I questioned myself and had to rewind it, watch it again. I was like, no, they're just doing a 5v5, but that's something that could possibly happen in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I was waiting for the blood and guts match when that was postponed. And I know that they're waiting for fans to come back on a real scale. And I can't wait for that moment, because when you've got fans in the arena, the entire presentation is just much more enhanced.
Yeah,
as was discussed previously.
Definitely, and looking forward to all future endeavours. So next week, there's a couple of matches. We will do our preview, hopefully get it up on Tuesday or Wednesday morning for us all. But apart from that, there's nothing. Is there any random wrestling questions you would like to ask, Gary, before we sign off for today?
Yes. In terms of wrestling as a whole, so it doesn't have to be just AEW.
Okay.
What's been your favourite match that you've ever watched?
Ooh, is this time scale forever, or is this just this year?
This is time scale for whenever you want it to be.
Oh, okay.
And this goes out to the audience as well for comments after the podcast has been brought live on YouTube.
Do you know yours? Because you can answer this first, whilst I think, because I've got about 2 in mind.
Yes, absolutely.
Go for it, Gary, whilst I think.
It was a. Some people are going to forget this match. They're not going to know it exists. They're going to think it was terrible. I know this. I'm 100% certain that it's real. But there was a match on Nitro around about 1999, which was Hulk Hogan and the return of Hulkamania. And it was Hogan, Sting, and Goldberg versus Kevin Nash, Sid Vicious, and Rick Steiner. And this 6-man tag team match was a mixture of brilliant, because of the biggest stars in the world that were involved in it at the time, and also car crash TV. And I thought it was fantastic. And to this day, I still watch Hulk Hogan's return and think it's one of the biggest moments in WCW's history that gets swept under the carpet. And I feel a great sense of injustice. And it's also one of the few times that Goldberg came out to Megadeth rather than the standard theme that we all know from WWE and WCW.
I preferred the Megadeth one. Really, really did.
Yeah.
What was your favourite bit of the match overall, though, Gary? Like, what made you think that was your favourite overall?
100% just the fact that everything seemed to be stalling every 2 minutes, just because of the ages of half of the people that were in it. It was like everyone was waiting for something to happen, and it never did, which is why I was saying it's absolutely terrible, but it's one of my favourite matches of all time. And anyone that knows me knows that Car Crash TV is exactly where I'm at. And second on that list is definitely the birth of the Broken Universe, Jeff Hardy versus Matt Hardy, TNA Impact.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Final in the deletion matches. It doesn't matter which deletion it was. I don't care. Them 3 matches were absolutely phenomenal and showed a completely different way of presenting wrestling that now WWE and AEW are having to take advantage of during lockdown times. It's just been fantastic.
And he's just the one that revamped it all entirely. Cinematic matches, they have existed, but very, very, very bog standard. That was completely different. So to answer your question, Gary, there's I've literally got 4 in mind. So thinking about it, it's probably has to be Stone Cold Steve Austin's last match, to be honest. You've got my Mick Foley ones. We know this, where I basically said him and Triple H when he chose Catcher's Jack for the very, very first time. And then I also really, really enjoyed CM Punk and John Cena. Was it Money in the Bank when they did it? That 5-star
Yeah,
match they did?
It was, yes. It
But
just passed, I think, 8
yeah,
years ago.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Because I saw it on, someone put it on Twitter a while ago with it all on. But no, The Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin, when Stone Cold actually retires and The Rock wins, and it's just the match itself is. I'm not going to go in and out because a lot of people have probably seen this. If you haven't seen it, you need to go and see it. Do you know what year it was, Gary? I can't think in top of my mind. Is it WrestleMania 19?
Can't remember the year, but it was definitely 19.
Yeah, so WrestleMania 19, final match, The Rock versus Stone Cold. It was just the ending. And I've watched the documentary for Stone Cold as well, and it still gave me goosebumps through that. And it was just the fact that even though The Rock won, The Rock didn't celebrate straight away. They won, and they talked to each other for the final few seconds. And it just shows you the connection between what wrestlers go and what they go through on a daily basis. The match itself is phenomenal. The story told in and out of the match is insane, but it's just that ending after the pin. I'll always remember that. It's just, I didn't even watch it live. That was the funny thing. It was one of the few matches I saw when I was going through all my wrestling like trope. When I was introduced with it all, I literally watched the Rock and Stone Cold Steve Austin feud quite a lot. And then that match, just outstanding. Just go and watch it if you haven't seen it. Simple as that.
Yeah, I can second that. Everyone needs to see not just that match, but the entire trilogy between the two of them at WrestleMania. One for the Intercontinental title, if I remember correctly. One for the world title, and one just to prove who's best, because The Rock needed to get that victory. Yeah. And the story that was being told in that match didn't even get told. It was Stone Cold's last match beforehand. So there was all that emotion added to it as well. I remember that like it was yesterday, and it was a fantastic pick there, Jed.
Just insane. For the 0.01% of people that haven't seen it, like I said, just go and watch it. So overall, Gary, Dynamite, extremely good. I've just logged on some statistics as well. Yes, he did very, very good with viewership. Again, we're not that bothered with it, but it's just good to know that a lot of people are viewing it, and much, much higher from last week, which was a hybrid pay-per-view show. So it was in the 800,000, which is very good, and actually beat NXT in all the demos. So demo god prevails.
Absolutely, you can't go wrong with the demo god.
I can't wait to get another t-shirt with Chris Jericho on it, but much appreciated. I hope you all listen. Again, we're going to put our Twitter details on eventually. We just need to go a fine comb with a few things, and we'll eventually put lists on for our YouTube channel as well in the future. This is just our testing podcast just for our beginning, just to get us to get used to it before we get some other decent equipment as well. But hope you all have a good day, and much appreciated for listening. And if you haven't done so already, please just click the subscribe button so we know how many people are listening to us. Hopefully it does increase, and hopefully we get better content out to you in the future, guys. But much appreciated.